Hi everyone, welcome to the Whiteleyverse with me, Connor Whiteley, for another daily short story. Now, before I start today's story, please remember to like, comment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new content, and the engagement really helps the Whiteleyverse with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you want to buy this short story and any of my other fiction, then they're available from all major ebook retailers and at your local bookstore and local library if you requested, and you can order paperback copies from Amazon. Now, here's today's short story. I hope you enjoyed just as much as I did writing it.
Christmas viewing. The 19th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. University student Ollie Scott was a lot more excited than he wanted to admit as he drove along the narrow little country lane just outside Canterbury in his little black Skoda, as he headed towards Kent University to pick up his friends so they could view a house together. He wasn't a massive fan of the massive potholes that made his car jerk, bang, and pop as he drove over them, and the edges of the road were a little chipped and banged up. He was glad there were long, massive hedges of leafless blackberry bushes either side of the country lane. If it had been something like a cliff or something, he really wouldn't have trusted the country lane not to give way. The humming of the heating on full blast was largely drowned out by the sheer vibrating of the car going over the potholes, but Ollie enjoyed the sheer heat blowing in his face. It was bad enough he had had to scarp down the windscreen earlier without any gloves, and he had to watch his breath intensely condense into thick columns of vapor. That's how icy it was, and Ollie didn't doubt it hadn't warmed up at all since he left Medway to come to Canterbury. Ollie switched the little car radio on, slightly surprised at how warm the little black dial was, and he smiled as Jingle Bells started playing. He was looking forward to seeing his brother, sister, and great-aunt again in a few days over Christmas. Of course, there would be way too much food, way too much non-alcoholic drinking for him, and a lot of presents he would secretly sell next year because his family never brought him anything good or suited to his tastes. But he loved Christmas, his family, and all the wonderful chaos it entailed. Ollie wouldn't change a single thing for the world. The rich aromas of holly, roses, and chai latte filled the car, and Ollie was so looking forward to stopping at the university so he could finally enjoy the wonderful spicy wonder of his latte. He had quickly made it before he left, and he was hoping beyond hope by the time he got to Kent University it would be cool enough to drink. He wasn't exactly sure how he felt about moving into a student house with his two best friends, Eva and Ruby, and a random girl, Piper, that Eva knew from her chemistry lectures. It wasn't that Eva and Ruby weren't amazing people that were really kind, funny, and Ollie flat out loved spending time with them. But this was a big step. He was going into his master's, and Eva and Ruby were going into the second year of their undergraduate in September. And honestly, that was the crazy thing about university housing. You needed to find a good house as soon as possible, even if you wouldn't be moving in for another 9 months. It was a strange form of madness, but Ollie didn't mind. At least living with Eva and Ruby, he could start to live a life without the comments or subtle judgment from his parents. It was just awkward bringing a hot guy home at the moment, and Ollie really wanted to start dating. It wasn't even that he believed he needed a man to complete him, he seriously didn't. It was just that after living so long in the closet and not having the freedom to date because of his family, he just wanted to start living. He wanted to have a boyfriend. Ollie wasn't that sure on Piper. He had only met her once in an expensive coffee shop on campus. Why the university had an expensive coffee shop was beyond him, but she seemed nice enough. She was a little hard to talk to, and she just seemed flaky. The only reason why Ollie had joined the house hunt in the first place was because Eva and Ruby had wanted a backup. Ollie just wasn't sure about Piper, and if she dropped out, then that would impact everything. There were a lot more 4-person houses in Canterbury than 3, so without Piper, their house hunt would be even harder. It was bad enough most of the student houses this year had already been eaten up, and it was only December. He felt sorry for the people who were waiting till February to grab their house. All good ones would definitely be gone by then. The radio changed to a jazzy version of A Winter Wonderland, and Ollie rolled his eyes. In the 3 years he had been studying in Canterbury, he had only ever seen Canterbury in the snow once, and it was one of the most beautiful things he had ever seen. The hills, cathedral, and little ancient high street, blanketed in thick snow, was like something out of a high-quality fantasy film. It was the essence of Christmas, filled with warmth, love, and magic. Exactly what Ollie wanted. Ollie turned a corner, and was glad the blackberry bushes at the side of the road were replaced with thick oak trees, and even the road looked better. It wasn't as cracked, pothole-filled, and awful as the country lane had been a moment before. And Ollie heard his phone buzz, and he didn't dare check it, but he had a sinking feeling that he knew what it would be. He couldn't help but wonder if Piper had finally dropped out, causing more problems than Ollie ever wanted to deal with. The 19th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. University student Will Don lay face down on his large double bed in his large bedroom, enjoying the warm feeling of the soft blue cotton sheets that his parents had randomly brought him last week, as he wasn't going home for Christmas. He rolled over and just stared up at the sterile white ceiling. Out of the corner of his eye he could see the massive pile of geography textbooks on his desk that felt like they were staring back at him. He had an essay to do over the Christmas break on a topic he hadn't really learnt about it. It was something to do about how the natural geography of a landscape impacts town planning and the location of different areas of a town. It wasn't his favorite topic, but it was geography. It was fun, brilliant, and he flat out loved talking about it. Especially rivers. They were the real architect of landscapes, even more so in the United Kingdom. His only saving grace would be he was surrounded by reminders of his favorite time of the year. Will loved Christmas decorations and used every single thing he could get to craft the best Christmas experience he possibly could. Will had barely managed to carve out a little corner on his desk to put a small 3-foot fake Christmas tree that had certainly seen better days, with some branches being completely bare and discolored. Yet Will had definitely enjoyed wrapping the bright red, blue, and green tinsel around the branches to make it seem perfect and Christmassy and warm. On his small windowsill, there was a Christmas railway with a red metal train carrying carriages filled with little chocolates. He was hoping to one day get the steam working again on the train, but that was a day in the distant future. He enjoyed going to different Christmas markets in mainland Europe. He always surfed the internet in October and November, just before he went to bed, to find even more unique and strange Christmas decorations. And this year was no exception. Will had no idea why the world had started to become obsessed with baby pink sparkly Christmas decorations, but he was so glad it had. It was why he had brought way more sparkly tinsel, baubles, and small ornaments than he should have, and they were scattered around his room too. The sweet hints of jasmine, mint, and Lady Grey tea filled the bedroom, and Will supposed he should drink it at some point. It was probably cold by now, but he was so nervous about the house visit. He didn't blame his housemates in the slightest for ditching him and kindly asking him to do the house viewing. Technically, at least one more should have stayed per their tenancy agreement by the woman leading the house viewing didn't care, so he was the only one. He had already made sure their small gallery kitchen was spotless, perfectly clean, and looked straight out of a catalog. He washed and vacuumed the living room and stairs and dining area too. The house should be perfect. He had even picked out his best outfit that was smart but casual, because he felt a strange need to look good for these students visiting the house too. He had some black skinny jeans, a gray t-shirt, and a light green jacket over the top. It wasn't going out partying clothing or like he was trying to impress, but he wanted to look nice. Will still didn't like it how his stomach was churning, his hands were a bit sweaty, and he just felt so nervous. His mum had always taught him to be house proud, be tidy, and never give a reason for others to think you're a bad person for being messy. Of course he knew that was rubbish, and he was a clean freak, but it had been drilled into him so much he really didn't want the letting agency to think he was a bad tenant. Will just wanted to go home for Christmas because home was the one place he wasn't nervous, and he wanted to be home with his friends, family, and dog Bruce. He loved university, he loved his housemates, and he loved Canterbury. It was a brilliant place to live, but he couldn't go home and face the sheer judgment and disappointment from his family about breaking up with Lucas. Will sat up on his soft bed and wrapped his hands around the cold red mug of Lady Grey tea. Lucas had been so kind, wonderful, and the best boyfriend Will had ever had, but there was something Will hadn't felt with Lucas. It was clear that Lucas was really into Will, he was never going to deny that, but Will wanted a deeper feeling. It always felt like he had to be on guard, watch what he needed to say, and just do whatever Lucas wanted to make him happy. Will had no idea how much of that was true, but he still felt that way. It was just annoying. His entire family loved Lucas, and when Lucas stayed for the month over the summer, his mom kept making subtle wedding gestures and jokes. An idea Lucas had loved but Will had hated. They had only been together for 2 years and they were so young and just no. Will shook his head as he got a text from the woman from the letting agency who was a replacement, Isla, because the original woman was sick. Isla was saying that they would be here in a few minutes. He hissed as his stomach tightened. This was a 4-person house, and that meant there would be 4 brand new people that might judge him, criticize him, and make fun of him. Will took a deep breath. His past friendships had only helped his anxiety and nervousness get worse over the past few things, and that was another with Lucas. Will had really liked all of Lucas's friends, but now they hated him. They talked about him, and they looked at him like he was a monster. Maybe he was for breaking Lucas's heart, but he still stood by his decision. He wanted something real where he could be himself. The front door opened, and Will just hoped beyond hope that this house viewing was going to be okay. The 19th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. Ollie flat out couldn't believe Piper had actually dropped out just before their house viewing. He had no idea why the hell she would do that. Apparently, it was because of money. She had decided to live at home in Northfleet and commute to university. He supposed that was fine, but it would have been nice to know earlier. "This is lovely," Ruby said, wearing a thick black trench coat, black boots that rose up to her knees, and her long brown hair going down her back. Ollie couldn't deny she was right. They were all standing in the small square box-like hallway with a narrow staircase in front of them. Then there was an even narrower hallway leading to the right. The house plan said that was where a water closet, kitchen, and living room was. Ollie rather liked the dark blue carpet and the amazing smell of apples, cinnamon, and holly that filled the air. There were long lines of green, red, and copper tinsel hanging from the light fixtures and ceiling. The entire hallway just looked stunning, and Ollie really wanted to see the rest of the house. "Wow," Eva said, her long black trousers and white blouse making her look out of place in a small cheap student house like this one. Ollie followed Eva and Ruby and Isla into the living room, and he was shocked. This had to be the cleanest student house he had ever seen. Even Ruby's and Eva's kitchens and rooms at the university were never this clean. It was almost like no one had ever lived here in the first place. It was stunning. And Ollie was surprised how not only the chipboard work surfaces shone in the dim golden light of the gallery kitchen, but the small handcrafted Christmas figures looked impressive as hell. They seemed to make the kitchen even more Christmassy. "Whoever lives here clearly likes Christmas," Ruby said. "I like them a lot." Ollie couldn't agree more, and the long but narrow living room was even prettier. The medium-sized fake Christmas tree wasn't going to win any prizes, but it was sweet. The little golden, copper, and sparkly pink baubles and tinsel added a real warmth and sense of joy to the narrow living room. It was great. "I see there's only 3 of you here today," Isla said. Ollie rolled his eyes and subtly looked at Ruby and Eva. This was a real problem because they couldn't lie to her, but they seriously couldn't tell her the truth either. They couldn't just say that Piper had dropped out, so they didn't have the numbers for the house. "Piper had to work today," Ruby said. Ollie wanted to correct her because they couldn't lie to a letting agency, but there wasn't a better alternative, as much as Ollie hated to admit it. "Oh, okay," Isla said, gesturing to the rest of the house. "The landlord is happy with £375 a month if 4 people move in, otherwise he will charge £500 a month, so you do have a choice." Ollie forced himself not to laugh, because that wasn't a choice. That was the worst choice ever. They were all university students focusing on intense science degrees, so none of them had the time to get part-time jobs. They couldn't afford £500 a month at all. It was out of the question. And as you know, this house is in a perfect location for getting to Kent University, with a bus stop only a minute away, and we have a discount going on that ends today. Ollie subtly rolled his eyes. This couldn't be getting any worse for them. Ruby and Eva started to look a little sheepish, and Ollie just wanted to hug them. "The discount is if you sign up today and register your intent, then if everything goes through in the end, we'll give you £250 as a gift, so you can all take that off your rent for a month, spend it on bills or something like that." Ollie nodded. That would be great. £250 was a lot of money at the best of times, but it was even better when it came to reducing rent for a little bit. "I'll show you the bedrooms now, and I hope the guy upstairs is dressed well," Isla said. Ollie just grinned because knowing there was a guy here, hopefully a cute gay guy, made him a lot more excited than he wanted to admit. Little did he realize he had every reason to get excited. The 19th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. Will heard 4 sets of footsteps coming up the loose staircase, and he just focused on the bright pink tinsel on one of his shelves. He was so nervous about them coming into his room, and he really wanted them to like his Christmas decorations. He had already had a mixture of reactions from his housemates that one of them had ripped up some tinsel, and another one had taken pictures for social media because it was so great. Will just hoped the Christmas decorations made the house look lovely, because the house really was. Someone knocked on the door. "Come in," Will said, straining the words out. "Wow." Will just grinned like a little schoolboy at the sight of the insanely cute short man that came into his bedroom. He was probably barely 5 feet tall, but he was so cute, sweet, and just stunning. Will really liked how the cute man's fit, sexy body was covered in a tight-fitting black hoodie that highlighted how incredible his body was, and his blue skinny jeans left very, very little to the imagination. He wasn't complaining, because the cute man had some amazing legs on him, and even his third leg looked promising. Will was a little surprised how his stomach wasn't churning, his hands were sweaty, and he wasn't nervous or anxious. He was okay. He couldn't remember the last time that had happened for the life of him. "The Christmas decks look really cool," the cute man said. Will nodded and tried to speak, but he couldn't. He wanted to criticize himself, because even when he was really anxious, this never happened. He could normally at least form sentences. So he tried. "Thanks," Will said. "I really like Christmas, and I wanted the house to look nice." The cute man came a little more into the room, as he studied the decorations with such intensity that Will was a little surprised he didn't feel sick. "These are amazing. Did you get these in Belgium?" Will smiled. "Yeah, me and my ex-boyfriend went last year. The markets were beautiful, and the waffles were great too." "My parents like the waffles too," the cute man said. "I was jealous. I can't have them because I'm gluten intolerant, and I couldn't find any free ones." Will nodded. It was so nice to talk to someone who liked the Christmas markets as much as him. He heard Isla and 2 other people talk in the other bedrooms about the prices, the size, and who could sleep where. He didn't mind those conversations whatsoever, because sometimes housemates could be harsh and dominating about who got what room. "What other markets you been to?" the cute man asked. Will threw his hands up in the air. "I don't know, tons. Paris, Germany, including Berlin and Munich, Prague. I loved Prague." "Never been to Prague but been meaning to go," the cute man said. "My parents have stopped taking me to nice places though. Their silly idea is I need to have stuff to go to with my future boyfriend and family." Will nodded. He supposed his parents had a point, but it was sweet he thought he would have a family in the future. And Will just watched the cute man for a little longer as he went round the room inspecting the decorations and making cute comments about them, almost like he was an interior designer or something. Will knew he wasn't, because he had met interior or artsy students before, and they carried themselves differently. This cute man was probably a science student, which was hardly a bad thing. "How do you find living here?" the cute man said. "Oh, and I'm Ollie, by the way." "Nice," Will said a little too quickly. "I'm William, but everyone calls me Will." Will loved Ollie's little grin. He was so cute, and he wanted nothing more than to spend more time with him. "Ollie," a woman said. "I'm in here, Ruby," Ollie said, and he looked back at Will. "My question?" "Oh yeah," he said, focusing on how cute Ollie was. "It's a nice house. The landlord is really good, a little neurotic at times, but he's good." Ollie looked around and nodded. If I had any more questions about the house, could I ask you?" Will shrugged. That was a weird question. "I guess so, but don't you want to ask Isla?" Will asked. Ollie smiled. "But if I want to talk again to you, how could I do that?" Will's eyes widened as he realized what the cute man was asking, because it was nice to know Ollie probably thought he wasn't that bad-looking either, and at least it meant they could stay in touch and maybe even ask each other out in the future. "Yeah, sure, here's my number," Will said, putting it in Ollie's phone. "Ollie, we're done," Ruby said, popping her head in the doorway. "Remember, we have another house viewing. It's how these things work. You always get shown 2 houses." Will frowned a little. He really hoped the other house wasn't that great, because if that house was perfect, then Ollie wouldn't want to talk about this one, and there wouldn't be anything to base their relationship on. But as Ollie left the room, Will could have sworn Ollie winked at him, and that warmed his heart a little. Now he just needed Ollie to want to see him again, because he had given Ollie his number. Ollie hadn't given him his phone, so the ball was firmly in Ollie's court. Something that excited and scared Will more than he wanted to admit. The 19th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. Ollie couldn't stop thinking about how gorgeous and striking Will had been at the last house. He had never seen a man look so perfect and catalog-ready, in a light green jacket, gray t-shirt and sexy black skinny jeans. There was just something so great about him, and all he wanted was to go back to the house and see him. "This is a perfect house," Eva said. Ollie rolled his eyes, as all 3 of them stood in a large master bedroom with cream walls, a tiny desk, and large windows. It was a little weird there was a sink in one corner, but Eva seemed to love that, and he didn't blame her. It was a fancy, little touch. And the entire little dirty cream terrace house was nice enough. The living room was bigger, and the smart TV was enough, the bedrooms were larger, and everything was a little fancier. There was even a loft conversion, which Ollie wanted a little, because it was really cool. But this was lacking something. It was lacking joy. Ollie had liked how Will's house had such joy, character, and interest. It smelt of Christmas, and he missed the hints of cinnamon, apples, and holly that filled the living room. This house only smelt of cheap bleach and oranges. It was okay, but it wasn't a Christmas wonderland, and even his chai latte that he had finally drank on the way to this second house had been more Christmassy than this master bedroom. This entire house was nothing compared to Will's house. "So what do you think?" Isla asked, grinning. Ollie looked at Eva and Ruby, and they were like kids in a candy store. "We like that the kitchen has a dishwasher," Ruby said, failing to hide the excitement from her voice. Ollie nodded. That was a cool feature, and if it meant he didn't have to wash up by hand, then he was happy not to do that because he hated washing up. "We're going to talk about it, but we might take it," Eva said. "Okay, I'll leave you to talk for a bit, so feel free to walk around the property again," Isla said. "I'll be outside making some calls to other clients." Ollie smiled as she left, and then he just looked at Ruby and Eva. They couldn't be serious about buying this place, not considering the sheer lack of joy, the cost, and the problem that they were a person down. And the lack of will in this house. What about all the problems? Ollie asked. Sure, there isn't as much Christmas joy, the cost is a little much and we're a person down, Ruby said, suspecting there was a lack of will here that was bothering him. But there aren't any real problems here. Yes, there is, Ollie said. We need to find another person, even if we want to cover the rent. The landlord might be willing to rent it to us, but £510 a month is far too much. True, Eva said. Ollie paced around the master bedroom, hoping there was a hidden Christmas decoration or something. There weren't even any tenants that they could talk to about the house. Is a lack of will troubling you? Ruby asked. Ollie shrugged. He was fit and cultured, and he loved Christmas markets. Oh God, not you and Christmas markets again, Eva said, grinning. He probably can't help us. If they're letting the house, they already have somewhere else in mind for next year, or the majority of the housemates are graduating. Ollie rolled his eyes. That wasn't what he wanted to hear. He wanted his friends to say that Will was someone he should talk more to, and whatnot. I think we should get the house, Ruby said, after we find a fourth person. And that's the problem, Eva said. The problem just hung between them like a heavy secret that drained the life and joy out of the room. Ollie didn't like that his friends were right, because even if he agreed to this house, it was a pain in the ass that they needed a fourth person. Sure, it was university, so they could post on one of their course or society group chats, but he didn't want to live with a random stranger. Not that he would have much of a choice if Ruby and Eva had their way, because they were fine with that. But Will seemed nice enough. He was fit into Christmas, and Ollie was sure they had other things in common, and ultimately, this was university. Sometimes you needed to grab housemates and live with people you barely knew. Ollie just wanted to live with an attractive man that hopefully wouldn't be a stranger for long. He had to call Will immediately. The 19th of December 2023. Canterbury, England. The very last thing Will had expected was for Ollie to text him so soon, but he was so happy, thrilled and calm that he had. As much as Will didn't want to, and wouldn't admit it to anyone, all he had been able to think about since Ollie had left was him. He couldn't stop thinking about how cute, sweet and short Ollie was in all the right ways. Ollie just seemed to be so interesting, cultured, and he loved Christmas, which was all Will cared about. At least it was enough to get him interested, and wanting to know a lot more about that wonderfully cute man. This is stunning, Ollie said. Will passed cute Ollie a small warm mug of cranberry, orange and apple juice that he had found was an excellent non-alcoholic Christmas drink. He added some spices and different fruit peels to help make the drink come alive, and Will really enjoyed the sweet fruit aromas that filled the cold nighttime air between them. They were both sitting outside on a small wooden bench in Will's square back garden. He had always liked coming out here in the summer when he had moved his stuff in. The garden was a pure sun trap, and the odd roses and other plants the landlord had planted around the outside helped it seem a little more homely. Will had spent an entire day earlier in December hanging different red, golden, and icy blue Christmas lights around the garden to make it into a student-friendly type of winter wonderland. He really wanted there to be snow, but the lights were stunning. They didn't need any torchlight or light from the house because there were so many Christmas lights all around that he could see Ollie perfectly. He was so cute as he sat on the bench next to him. How do you get your light ideas? Ollie asked. Will laughed. I just throw lights about until I run out and hope for the best. You could be an artist and your garden's nice. Will nodded. He had never really liked or seen the appeal of gardening, but he used to help his grandma out with as a kid. And she always liked it when she visited. He liked how cute and sweet Ollie was when he sipped on the warm spiced fruit juice and moaned in pleasure. Will really hoped he would be hearing that sound a lot in the future if he played his cards right. So why did you want to meet me? Will asked, not wanting to ruin the moment. Well, Ollie said, smiling, Me and my friends might have slightly lied to Isla earlier about our fourth person because they dropped out instead of working today. Oh, Will said. He was hardly surprised because it was a little odd whoever this other person was would book a house viewing on a day they needed to work, but this was university. Stranger things had happened. What are you going to do now? Will asked. Ollie moved closer and Will grinned as their knees touched and Ollie pushed his harder against his. Will pushed back a little too. I was hoping to ask what your plans are for next year. The house is on the market, so I guess you're moving. Will laughed nervously for the first time since he met Ollie. It felt strange because everything felt so easy, natural, and right about Ollie that he couldn't imagine being nervous or anxious. I actually don't know, Will said. Yeah, the house is on the market because my housemates graduate this year and they're not doing their masters here. The landlord said if we let him put it on the market early, we can get a £20 discount a month off our rent. As soon as Will said it, he realized it wasn't a lot, but a discount was a discount. He really didn't care how small it was. Last month, he just gave it to the university food bank anyway. He probably would again this month too. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I might move in with some friends or random people. I don't know. Why? Ollie grinned. We need a fourth person, and we need someone who can make our house beautiful at Christmas and… Will really hadn't wanted him to trail off like that, but he looked at the house behind them and focused on all the pretty lights in the garden, and he could only smile. He really liked the house because it was lovely, the rent was good, and everything about the house was perfect. He also wouldn't have to move, and Will really didn't want to move if he could help it. Moving was just a pain. And most importantly, he would get to see more of Ollie. They could talk about their travels, their love of Christmas, and Will was sure they would have plenty more things in common too. And Will wanted more than anything for a relationship to form between them. They could go on dates, make love, and just be together in the comfort of their own home. I like you too, that's why I want you to move in with us, Ollie said, staring into Will's stunning eyes. I like you too, Will said, smiling like a schoolboy. So yeah, I'll move in with you. Will hugged Ollie, and he flat out loved the warm, wonderful feelings of attraction, tension, and chemistry flowing between them. He couldn't stop grinning, and Will flat out loved the feeling of Ollie's small body against his. It just felt so right, natural, and perfect. And then Will grinned even more, as he realized he could go home and it wouldn't be awful. Sure, his parents and his entire family would be a little disappointed. His relationship with Lucas was over, but there was something better beginning. Will hugged Ollie even tighter, and he shivered as Ollie laughed into his neck in utter delight. He might have only met Ollie a few hours ago, but this felt right, natural, and everything that his relationship with Lucas never was. With Ollie, he wasn't nervous, he could be happy, and he wasn't scared or anxious about sheltering bits and pieces of himself away like they were something he should be ashamed of. He loved Christmas, and he was more than happy he had someone in his life he could share that with. That would be enough for his family, because all they wanted for him was to be happy, and Will had a little feeling, massive feeling, that with Ollie, he seriously was going to be happy for a long, long time. The 6th of January 2024. Canterbury, England. Ever since him and gorgeous Will had started going out, Ollie had loved how they texted each other every day. They called twice a week, and he couldn't believe how interesting and funny and just brilliant Will was. They had a lot of the same interests, including traveling, sciences, and different films. They shared a lot of opinions on films, cinematography, and different film directors, which Ollie was more than grateful for. The last thing he ever wanted was to date an uncultured man. That would have been the worst thing ever. As Ollie's train rolled into Canterbury East Station, the ugly yellow and orange brick of the massive box-like train station coming into view, and even more passengers on the platform waiting to get on as soon as the train stopped, he was so looking forward to finally seeing Will again. He saw Will was already at the station on the platform, in a very sexy pair of skinny jeans, a light black jacket and a black t-shirt underneath. He had wanted to kiss him, hug him, and do so much to him, and they had been teasing each other a lot about that the past few weeks. And now, he might actually get a chance to do it all. Ruby and Eva were next to Will too, much in matching black jeans and trench coats. He was hardly surprised they had gotten together, but he was happy for them, and it was even better that fallen in love with Will as soon as he had told them they were dating. And all four of them had hung out the next day, as they were going to be living with each other. Ollie couldn't believe how many times Ruby and Eva had said stuff like, "Will's so sweet," "Will's so kind," "Will's the best," and so many more different phrases. And Ollie knew they were right about everything, because Will was so unique and kind and sweet. He was perfect boyfriend material. So as the train stopped in the station and Ollie grabbed his suitcase, he just knew that he was onto something great. Him and Will had grown a lot closer over the past few weeks, and he was looking forward to getting to know Will even more. Ollie stepped off the train into the icy coldness of the early afternoon Canterbury air with hints of petrol lingering around him, but as soon as Will came over and hugged him, Ollie liked how it was all replaced with the great hints of manly musk, apples and cinnamon. Will smelt like Christmas, and Ollie loved that. Christmas was a wonderfully warm, caring and lovely time of the year. Something Ollie never wanted to stop enjoying, especially with Will by his side. Him and Will went off towards Will's house to take down the Christmas decorations on Epiphany Day, with Ruby and Eva laughing and walking close behind them. But Ollie knew just because they were closing the lid on Christmas this year, that didn't mean they were closing the magic and romance of the holiday season. Because the romance was just getting started, and Ollie couldn't wait to see where it would take him and the gorgeous man next to him.
Welcome back everyone, it's me again, Connor Whiteley. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's story, because I flat out love writing, creating stories and sharing them with you. If you really enjoyed today's story, then please remember to like, comment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new content, and the engagement really helps the Whiteleyverse with the YouTube algorithms. And if you want to buy this short story or any of my other fiction, then they're available from all major ebook retailers, and you can get them from your local library if you requested, and you can order the paperback copies from Amazon, your local bookstore or local library if you request it. Lastly, if you want to support the channel on a one-off basis, then you can now buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Connor Whiteley. Also, if you know anyone who would enjoy today's story, then please share it with them. I'm always really grateful when you wonderful people help spread the word about the channel. So, thanks for watching the Whiteleyverse, and I'll see you again soon. Have a great day, everyone.